Good. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Now we are beginning this beautiful week with charity. Beautiful week of learning. Centered. Oh, now let's start off with charity. Here we go. Tzion b'mishpat tepara reshaveha b'tzedakah. The Jewish people were redeemed with charity and Torah. Here we have Torah. The redemption will come with Torah. Torah and charity protect, even if it's just charity alone. But there has to be charity. Charity is more important than anything. But in order to know what is good and what's bad, where you should put your energy, you have to have the Torah. Here we have Parshat Chaye Sora. Parshat Chaye Sora talks about Abraham coming to bury his wife. And he goes to Eretz Israel, comes to Hebron, and he wants to bury his wife, Sora. She just passed away. And he finally buys a place which is called Ma'arat HaMachpelah. Ma'arat HaMachpelah means the doubled cave. Machpelah means to be doubled. A doubled cave. That's what it's called. Now, of course, this is written in the Torah. So because it's written in the Torah, it's not just a history book. It is also, of course, it's a history book, but it's not just a history book. It's much, much more than that, because the Torah was written by God. And God happens to be the one that's creating us. So do you feel that you're being created? Well, you should. When they used to go to the temple, the holy temple, the Beit HaMikdash, they would feel it. But the same thing is when you read the Torah, do you feel that God is saying these words in the Torah? Well, when they went to the holy temple, they felt that also. That's why the Holy of Holies was the Torah, was the 10 commandments, the tablets. Okay, so every word that's in the Torah is connected to us, our creation, why we're created. And here we have a special example. Here's a real good example. Things you'd never think of. Marat HaMachpelah. Marat HaMachpelah. Okay, so there's a prayer that we say, it's a song that was written by Isaac Luria about 400 years ago. He was like the father of modern Kabbalah. He didn't really write that much. He had a pupil that was called Rabbi Chaim Vital, and Rabbi Chaim Vital, he transcribed everything that the Arizal, that's the Rabbi Isaac Luria, what he said. He's buried up in Sfat. He's buried in Sfat. Okay, so there's a song on Shabbat. I don't know if I should bring it. Actually, maybe I should have brought this up before. But anyway, there's a song that says like this: Yagala lon tarme, the bisre sarname, the inunash bishme, kefila uklisha. So it says, I will reveal to you the secret of the 12 loaves of bread. And what's the 12 loaves of bread? What's this? In the Holy Temple, at part of the service of the Holy Temple, what was called the face bread, lechem apanim. I think they translated show bread. I don't know why in the world they translated that, but anyway, face bread. It's called lechem apanim. And what was this lechem apanim? We learned a little bit about the Holy Temple, but if you were a Kohen, you went into the Holy Temple, so there was like sort of the outer courtyard, that was the altar. And then you went into the inner chamber, and then there was an inner chamber. So the inner chamber was called the Holy of Holies. That was where the ark was. But the inner chamber, that was just called the Holy, or the Heichal. And there were 3 pieces of furniture, you want to call it, three. There's on your left side was the menorah, famous menorah, right, with the 7 branches. And in the middle, it was like a triangle with started pointing at you. The first thing you would come to in the middle was a small altar made of gold, and that was for burning incense. On your left side was the menorah. On the right side was a table that had 6 layers to it. And on each one of these layers was 2 loaves of this weirdly shaped bread. And that was shaped like a U. Each loaf was called a U. That was called the lechem apanim, the face bread, and there was 12 of them. There's the 12 breads. And they used to be removed once a week and eaten by the Kohanim right Erev Shabbat. It would be removed. It would be fresh. It would still be fresh. It was thick. It was matzah, but it was thick. In any case, that's the 12 loaves of bread. Okay, so why do they have 12 loaves of bread? Why? Right? Doesn't make any sense. What do they have to have 12 loaves of bread for? I mean, the whole business that the Holy Temple doesn't make any sense. Sacrifices don't make any sense. I mean, basically, Judaism doesn't really make any sense. Basically, that God wants us to read this book and He wants us to do these commandments. It's only for the Jewish people. You have to throw box on your arm, box on your head. You can't light up a fire on Shabbat. You can't throw a twig into a bonfire on Shabbat. It's punishable by death. Punishable by death. I mean, it's not really funny, but it doesn't make any sense. That's what God, the creator of the universe, the almighty Lord of the heavens and the earth, He cares of. Hey, look at that Jew. Threw a stick under that. Get him. Right? But that's what the Torah is. It doesn't make any sense. Okay, so here we have the ideas of Kabbalah that try to make a little bit of sense of what the Torah is talking about. Just to remind everybody again, the whole idea of Kabbalah, the secrets of the Torah, is only to inspire Jews to do the Torah and the commandments with more enthusiasm. That's the whole idea of Kabbalah. To do the Torah and the commandments with more enthusiasm. Those people who just learned Kabbalah and it's a philosophical thing are definitely missing the point. Okay, here we go. So Yigala Lon Timer, there will be revealed to you the reason for the 12 loaves of bread. The 12 loaves of bread, like I just explained to you, kafila uklisha, they are doubled and weak. Kafila uklisha, that's what it says in the prayer. Kafila uklisha. That's what the Arizal, the Kabbalist Rabbi Yitzchak Luria, that's what he writes in this poem that he writes. And like I said, we sing this every Shabbat, but in the nighttime. Yigal on time may the beast raise our mom, may the ilun nasvishme, the ilun nasvishme, nasvishme, the ilun nasvishme, kafila uklisha. Good morning.
Good morning.
So now we're going to learn about this. Why are we learning about what's this got to do anything? Because Sora was buried in a place called Sadeh Machpelah. Machpelah means doubled. And here we have kafila uklisha. Kafila means doubled and weak. That's this. So it's connected somehow or other to these 12 loaves of bread. Here we go. Ready? Yes. Let's make this a little bit bigger so that I can read it more easily. Here we go. There we go. Yigala Lon Tame will be revealed to you the reason of the 12 loaves of bread. Hine, milui hey. The letter hey can be filled up. It's another hey. What happened over here? We got my pointer. Vehi and is bechinat kafila. That's doubled. Kanoda, like it's known. Me'inyan marat amachpela, from the idea of marat machpela, that this represents the hey acharon, the last hey of God's name, of the name Ban. Okay, let me explain this to you also. The name of God is 4 letters. There's a lot of different names of God, but the main name of God it's got 4 letters in it. Each name of God represents a different aspect of God, His power, His mercy, His balance, etc. So the letter Yud Kei Vav Kei, we don't say all the letters. So it says Yud and then Hey and then Vav and then Hey, right? So if you just take the numerical value of that word, Yud and then Hey Vav, so Yud is 10, and two hays are 5. Each one is 5, so that's another 10. And the vav is 6. So the numerical value that's called the gematria is 26. But if you fill up those letters like yud, you fill it up with vav dalet. When you say yud, you have to pronounce it. So it's yud. So it's yud vav dalet. So you added a vav and a dalet to the yud. Yud. So that comes out to be 20. Vav is 6, dalet is 4. So the yud is 10. So you had yud already had 10, and you added on another 10, vav and dalet. So that makes 20. And so it is, you can fill up all the other letters. Now we have to remember we're talking about God over here, and this is the powers that are creating the world. So this is not just in the world. These letters we're in these letters, not that these letters are in us, right? Letters like letters in the alphabet. We are inside of these letters. These are the letters that are creating the world. The yud and hey, the vav hey. So there are different ways to fill these letters up, especially the letter hey. The letter hey can be filled up either hey aleph with an aleph. So then instead of hey being 5, then it becomes the gematria 6. Or hey, then it comes the numerical value of 10. Or hey yud, with a yud in it, then it becomes 15. Okay, so if you fill up the letter hey with another letter hey, so it comes out to be, then you have to, I think the aleph, the vav has an aleph in the middle of it. In any case, if you fill up the yud and the hey, vav hey, this name of God, with these other letters, you add on more to the original 26 until it comes out to be, there's 4 general results. What's called 45, that's ma. Then there's 72, that's ab. Then there's 63, that's sag, 63. And then there's ban. Ban is 52. And 52, these 4 different letters, gematrias, these also correspond to the sphirot of God, to the aspects of God. In any case, let's not go into this too much. The 40 filling the letter, filling the name of God with hey, each time you put a hey, that's the kafila, that's the a double hey. And the double hey that transforms the name Yud K Vav K, the letter of 26, it transforms it to 52, and 52 is the numerical value of this name of God, which is this physical world, Ban. Ban is also the numerical value of animal. Okay, so we have a world, right? And the world is being created. And God is creating it. Why don't we see God? Why don't we feel God? It says because God is creating it from like, how do you want to call it? A double power, something that's coming out of God. You want to call it a picture of a picture of a picture of a picture of a picture. So we have the essence of God. And then we learned that last week also. We have the essence of God, then we have the light of God, then we have emanations from this light, then we have the veils that cover over this light, etc., etc. But the whole thing is one big picture of God, but we have to work with it according to the way it's created. We can't just say everything is one, so life is just but a dream. No, there's the words of the Torah, the commandments of the Torah are very, very detailed. And that comes from all these details. And the details come from this name, Ban 52, which is all the details of this world, physical. Okay, but it's the creative force of God that's creating this world. And that's the whole job of the Jewish people, is to realize this and to cure the world. The Jewish people are like doctors, right? Their whole thing is to cure the world. The world is sick because you don't feel the real life force in the world. And the Jewish people, they're supposed to bring this out. And so it says, the life force which is in this world, this is like a doubled power, they say a replica of godliness. It's a weakened version of God. That's what it means, it's doubled, kafila. And also we're going to see that's what it means, kalisha, that it's weak. Kafila and kalisha. Okay, Indians like this. Let's understand, first of all, the idea of eating. Right? This is talking about the 12 loaves of bread that were in the Holy Temple. They were there to be eaten. The main thing of eating. Why do we eat? That from the food, nasa becomes fat and blood inside of us. V'hadam, and the blood, hu nefesh, that's our life. V'chayot adam, and the life force of man. Shemakabel akaved, adam, that the liver receives blood or makes blood from the food. V'sholech lelev, and then it sends it to the heart, and the heart sends it to the brain. V'talat shlitim, and these are the three main forces of life in a person: liver, heart, and brain. Because that's where the blood circulates: the liver, the heart, and it goes to the brain. And the lungs, that just provides oxygen to the blood. But the main thing is the blood. So the blood comes from your food. They said by means of this, Michael, by means of that, the food becomes elevated. That first of all, it was you had just a carrot. A carrot was vegetable. And now you eat the carrot and it becomes a Jew, a human being, a Jew. And it becomes from it, Lev Moach Adam, that from this carrot becomes the heart and the brain of a person. And that person can make a decision to serve the Creator. So that's called an elevation. By means of this, your brain and your heart become stronger because of the food in serving God. And you can serve God with your heart. So from the carrot becomes godliness. The carrot on its own can't show its source. But when man uses that carrot, the energy of the carrot, so the carrot therefore contributes, it becomes a partner in serving God. Not only that, it becomes a partner, it also becomes it becomes the fuel. Because of this food, that's what's called elevation. That without eating, you become weak. So the food needs you and you need the food. The food needs you to become elevated, but you need the food in order to have energy to serve the Creator. That's why we're here. Now, that's very unusual, serving the Creator. Billions of people live in the world, and they live for themselves. That's why God created everybody. And they even use God for themselves, right? I want to go to heaven. And the idea of the Jewish people is to not think about yourself, to think about the Creator, and to get excited about the Creator, like you get excited about yourself. And to love the Creator like you love yourself, and to fear the Creator like you fear for yourself. You don't want to do anything against God. So you fear. That's called elevation. Elevation. You become something different than everybody else. That's what the Jewish people are chosen for. And also your brain, your mind becomes stronger to think about the greatness of God. That's the whole idea of refining the world. Shamina Michael, that from food, Nasa Adam becomes a human being. But calls all this is only in the weekdays. Oh, but on Shabbat, it's a whole different thing, a whole different system on Shabbat. So God gave this thing called Shabbat to the Jewish people. Now, Shabbat is only for the Jews. The 10 Commandments, the whole Torah is only for the Jews. In the 10 Commandments, in the beginning, in Bereshit, in the commandments that God gave to man, are contained what's called 7 Noahide commandments, 6 Noahide commandments. The 7th one is given to Noah. In there is contained all the other commandments. There are some details which are mentioned in the Torah, but essentially the Torah is given only to the Jews. The commandments there are only for the Jews. Only for the Jews. And one of the most, blatant examples is Shabbat. A non-Jew is not allowed to keep Shabbat. A non-Jew is, is punished for keeping Shabbat. A non-Jew is not allowed to keep Shabbat. Not allowed to keep Shabbat. Shabbat is a day which was only given to the Jews. Why? Because the whole idea of Shabbat is to let us know that you have to work to serve God. And on Shabbat, is devoted to the boss. who you're working for. That's Shabbat. Shabbat is to know who you are working for, and you're working for the Creator. That's the job of the Jews. But the non-Jews are also supposed to believe in the Creator. They're not obligated to work for the Creator, like the Jews do. So the Jews have to use the world in order to serve the Creator. The non-Jews are supposed to use the world and make the world a livable place, a place which is good, a place which is blessed. A place where the Jews are here to make the world holy. The Jews are here to reveal God in the world. And where is God? Where do we get the example of what to do? Shabbat. Shabbat is like teaching us what it means to reveal God in the world. Like a doctor goes to university, wherever, and he learns, anatomy, and he learns the things. He learns what to do, where to operate. He learns so Shabbat, that's like the university for us. Shabbat, we're in touch with the goal a little bit, godliness. On Shabbat, it says borer osir. On Shabbat, we don't have to refine the world. That's why most of Shabbat is just prohibitions for the Jews. Prohibitions. You're not supposed to make a fire. You can't write a letter. You can't sew. You can't fix something. You can't. Shabbat. All these things are forbidden for a Jew. Why? Because Shabbat, you're not supposed to work. Shabbat, you're not supposed to work doing fixing. There's special types of works, 39 types of work. But so on Shabbat, it's you don't do any refinement of the world. But what about food? Food is a higher level. It's hamshach. Instead of raising it up from below to above, the food is drawing down godliness from above to below. The Shabbat itself, the physical world, shines God on Shabbat. That's the way it was when God created it. Az titaneg al Hashem. Then you get pleasure only on God. You don't get pleasure on Shabbat from anything else, only from God. That's what it's supposed to be. It is written, it says that God, you created me. It's a sentence in Psalms. You created me last and first. Man is the last thing to be created in the creation, right before Shabbat. The sixth day, right before Shabbat, man was created, a few hours before. That food, as it is below, how the food came into the world, what's called the breaking of the vessels. A man is higher than the food. The food becomes refined by means of man. But man, the way the food is, let's say in the weekdays, so food is obviously lower than man. Obviously, food is lower than man. Food can't talk. Food can't think. Food has no emotions. Food has no free will. That means of taking the food and using it for what God wants. So the food raises up to a higher level. It becomes man. So food obviously is lower than man. The breaking of the vessels we talked about before, but essentially the breaking of the vessels is one of the steps in creation that God wanted these vessels to break so that there would be separateness in the world, selfishness in the world. It was a step in the creation. But the fact is now in the world seems to be separate, right? And the job of the Jewish people is supposed to unify with God. So one of the ways of doing it is with food. Everybody has to eat. So you figure the food, normally it controls a person. But the Jewish people, they're supposed to control the food. They eat food only to serve God. And that elevates the food because food is lower than us. But, says the Rebbe, really, food, a carrot, in its source is higher than man. Food comes higher than man. Food comes from the dimension of reality, which is called tohu. It says before Melech Libnei Israel, before there was a king of the Jewish people. It says these are the 7 kings. What I think is Parshas V'yishlach. In a few weeks we'll get to it. The kings of Edom that they ruled before there was a king in Israel. It says this one ruled and he died, and this one ruled and he died. That's talking about the 7 the aspects of this world of tohu. And that So this tohu is, what is it? It's 10 spheres of God, but they're totally pure. And God purposely made them pure, and he broke them so that they would tumble down into the world and be low. So in their source, they're higher than man. They come from tohu. Man comes from what's called tikkun. So the source of a carrot is really from this world of tohu, which before it broke, it was much higher than man. And coming down into the world, it becomes lower than man. But the fact of the matter is that in its source, it has this tremendous power, tremendous. It's something like, finding diamonds or pearls or whatever. Diamonds are just like minerals. They're absolutely nothing. What is a diamond? It can't talk. It can't think. It can't anything. So you dig down into the ground, and suddenly it has this tremendous treasure that it can buy food. It can buy you welfare, for build houses for people. It's higher than a person. That's what it is. It says that this world is dead. This world is much lower than man, but you can see that in its source is higher than man. Why do we see that food is higher than man? We need food to live. We receive our life from food. Because it's the last thing man because man was the last thing made in creation. So man, in one way, is the first thing. It's the highest. Man is the highest. The whole world was made for man. So man is the highest. But really, man was created last in the creation to show that, in fact, man, his source is lower than the world. We are here to fix up the world. The world is higher than us. So all of the days of the work is we have to work really hard to elevate the world. But on Shabbat, that's the time when the world is elevated on its own. The world declares that it is created by God. That's Shabbat. So the food also, which is part of the world, the food gets elevated to its source, and it's drawn from it life to the soul, milamaila, from above to below. And that's by means of the 12 loaves of bread. They would change these 12 loaves of bread on Shabbat. Right before Shabbat, they would be eaten on Shabbat. So therefore, these 12 loaves of bread provided sustenance to the whole entire world. This is the 12 to the whole entire world on Shabbat. That's what it means that a tzaddik, a righteous person, eats in order to satisfy his soul, not just his body, because there's two types of food. One type of food is to satisfy your soul. You eat only because God wants you to. You eat only in order to elevate the food. And the second one is called, and this is in Proverbs, Beten Rishoyim Taksor, that the stomach of the selfish people is always empty. To eat in order to satisfy your soul. This is the chayes nefesh. This is the life of the soul which comes from above. That's like on Shabbat. And Bet and Rashoyim, and the stomach of the selfish people, that it's always that's Rashoyim, that's a chitzonim, that's the external forces. That's like us when we don't feel God. So therefore, we have to, by means of food, mevorim mi'em chayil, by means of that. Therefore, we need the food. We need the food to energize us. Because in every food, there's good and there's bad. There's also false desires. That's the source of what's called klippa. And by means of that, it's enclosed in the person, and it becomes blood, and the blood goes to the brain, and this transforms to be good by means of serving God. So therefore, we are refining the food. That's the weekday. So in the weekdays, there is selfishness in the food, and we have to refine it to serve God with. And on Shabbat, there's no selfishness in the food. The food refines us. I mean, that doesn't mean you can eat like an animal, but the fact is that the food is different food. Now, the reason we're saying this is because the job of the Jewish people is different from the purpose of all mankind. The Jewish people have an extra responsibility, and that is to refine the world, to make the world holy. And that was the whole idea of the Holy Temple. Now the Rebbe says that's why there was in the Holy Temple, there were these 12 loaves of bread. The 12 loaves of bread are showing one of the jobs of the Jewish people is eating for the sake of the Creator. For the sake of the Creator. And so to speak, on Shabbat, is the Creator gives the food is for our sake. God gives it to us. The food is elevated on its own on Shabbat. When a person eats in the weekdays, that's the idea of refining, of working hard to take the good from the bad. That it means that the stomach, the stomach of the selfish people is always empty. But the eating on Shabbat, this is drawing down from above to below. That's to satisfy your soul because of the food that you eat, as it is in its source above. Before it fell down into the breaking of the vessels. That's the food in their source, how it was in the world of Tohu before it fell down into this world, higher than man. Like it's written in the Zohar. It says, Perish Chageihem, it's one of the prophecies of, I think it's Isaiah. The excrement of your holidays will be put on your face. It says if you don't invite guests to your house on the holidays, you don't give charity, then it says that the food, the excrement of it will be the bad part of the food, the waste products will be put on your face. In other words, instead of being pushed out and you using the food for only holy things, so it ends up on the holidays, if you misuse the food, you only use it for your own selfish purposes, then it's the opposite of what's supposed to be. And you're not separating the bad from the good. The bad and the good is together on the holidays. But on Shabbat, it says there's no worry because there's no waste in the food, so to speak, spiritual. That which is done the food in the weekdays, that is done by means of from below to above, like in the weekdays. And also we'll see Yom Tov is sort of like a weekday compared to Shabbat. Yeshbo Pirish, there is excrement. Shu Psolit, what this is the waste products of the food. That the good part goes to your heart and your brain, and the excrement, the bad part, this comes below in the stomach and etc. We're talking about spiritually. I think everybody knows that on Shabbat, the food you eat on Shabbat, it is not. It also requires going to the bathroom, physically, but says the Rebbe, spiritually not. Spiritually not. Spiritually, the food of Shabbat is different. That's we're refining it. But on Shabbat, that's the weekdays. On the weekdays, there is good and bad in the food. And your job is to elevate the good, to choose only the good and use the food. That's the weekdays. And the same thing is on Yom Tov, we'll see. But Shabbat is the holiest day of the year by Jews, Shabbat. And Yom Kippur is called Shabbat Shabbaton. It's called a double Shabbat. But Shabbat is the, how do you want to call it, the Independence Day for the Jews. That's the day the Jewish people gain their independence from the world, and their identity is from Shabbat. That's why a non-Jew is not supposed to keep Shabbat, because Shabbat is specifically for the Jews. On Shabbat, that everything is already refined, it's from above to below, so there is no spiritual waste in the food. Because where does the excrement, where does the food have things which are not usable? That comes from the tree of the knowledge of good and bad. Good and bad. And above that becomes good and bad in the food. That's why Adam sinned with eating. When Adam ate from the tree of knowledge, so what did he do? He took the bad part of it, because it was a tree of the knowledge of good and bad. It says there were two trees that God said don't eat from. The tree of life that was purely good, and the tree of good and bad. And God said, don't eat from the tree of good and bad. Do me a favor. It says that there's books that say that if Adam would have waited just for 3 hours, he could have eaten. The Shabbat would have come in. He would have been able to eat from this tree because Shabbat refines everything. But he didn't wait for those 3 hours. Nevertheless, on the weekday, he was not allowed to eat from this food and from the tree of good and bad because he didn't have the power to refine it. If he would have waited the Shabbat, he would have had the power. So Adam ate from the tree of good and bad, and we're still our eating today is only to fix up the mistake that Adam made. And also in every person there's also this they say this confusion of good and bad. Some people have more good in them, some people have bad. V'chein yesh l'tov shelo b'chein zu avol b'Shabbat, but on Shabbat it says az titanagal Hashem. Ideally, Shabbat is totally different from the different days of the week. It says that God made the world in 6 days, and the seventh day he rested. Why did he have to rest? The main thing is to make the world. Let him make the world should be 6 days long, and that's it. It says no, the whole point of the world is to elevate the world to God. It's almost like a human being. What is a human being? A human being is only there just to eat and to sleep and to have pleasure and to be big or something like that. Or maybe there's something higher in a human being, even a non-Jew. Maybe there's something higher. Maybe there's some higher meaning, some reason that we're here in the world. That's called your soul, if you want to call it. Maybe your soul. So there has to be, a person is not just a body. There's also a soul. I know that communism and these things say there's no such thing as a soul or meaning, ultimate meaning. We're just animals, just have to get along in the world. But that's not so, it's a lie. The Jewish people, they are the example of this. 6 days you should work. Shabbat is a day where the physical world is devoted only to the Creator. Says the Rebbe that it's not just a psychological thing. It's not just a thing the Jewish people decided. It's a spiritual thing that actually on Shabbat things are different. And the world really returns to its source on Shabbat. On Shabbat, it says, Az titanega Hashem, then we get pleasure on Hashem above the tree of knowledge and good, of bad and good and bad. That's Shabbat. So that's the secret. The secret of these 12 loaves of bread that were in the Holy Temple, they were changed for Shabbat. Shabbat. So the whole idea of eating, says the Rebbe, is to take the good, remove the good from the bad. That's eating. That's the 6 days of the week. But on Shabbat, things are different. Shabbat things are godly. They're holy. So what's the Rebbe trying to point out over there? The world belongs to God. It's not our world. But God put us into this world in order to fix up the world. That's what the whole idea of man, to perfect the world, to make something higher than what it was even when it was created. That man could use his free will to choose to serve God. That's the 6 days of the week. On Shabbat, God, so to speak, recharges the batteries. He lets us know what we should be choosing, who we're working for. But 6 days are days of work, and the seventh day is the boss's day. God lets us know that we are sons of the boss. But the Jewish people are the sons of God. God is the boss of the world. 6 days we have to work. We're just workers. On the seventh day, so that's the one we become. And you say, well, the boss invites us home. We remember, well, on the Son, on God's Son. So that is, it reflects itself in the food that we eat. And that's the whole secret of the 12 loaves of bread which were in the Holy Temple, as we are going to explain more, God willing, tomorrow. Now let's do the Yom Yom, the Devar Malchut. Welcome everybody that just came. Is everybody here? What's it? 1 minute. 1 minute. 1 second. Yeah, good. Good. Okay. 1 minute. What's this going on over here?